But I kept saying to him and the doctors, I'm like, okay, I've had 2 children. One, that route. One, the alternative route. It can't be that bad.
Been down both streets.
I said that to the surgeon on our first meeting. He was explaining the surgery and, pain care. And I said, okay, just tell me one thing. On a scale of 1 to C-section, what are we talking here?
Yeah. I'm interested. What did he give you?
Hey, and welcome to the Forties Formula, your go-to place for insightful discussions on navigating the 40s and thriving in this transformative decade.
We're your hosts, Jasmin and Amanda, 2 women that are passionate about exploring the challenges and adventures that come with turning 40 and what lies ahead.
Claire, when I first heard your story, I got goosebumps and I started welling up, and I really can't imagine what you and your family went through. So could you just take us back to the beginning and tell us how this all started and share with us how you discovered that something was first wrong?
Okay, so at the time, I'll create a bit of a picture of what was happening at the time. So we were like in the midst of COVID. So we were out of lockdowns, but still lots of restrictions going on. But for what I do in my world, which is retail, it was quite a bit of a boom time. So I was running around, running 3 locations. So we had Duchat Road, Raffles Hotel, Arcade, and a pop-up in Tangjeong Pagar. And I was running around like crazy. At home, I've got obviously my husband, 2 kids, and my father-in-law was living with us at the time as well. And I was really just in and out of the house, super manic, focusing on the business. And a few days in a row, I came home and I was like, what's going on with you? To my husband, I was like, you look a bit off, like you look a bit weird, something's not right here. And then one day when I came home from work, I was very late and he had already was like, in bed. And I looked at his face and it was like completely swollen on one side. And we worked out that I was like starting to look at it, and we worked out that he had like a bit of hardness on his lip. And we thought, oh my God, you've been bitten by something. You've been bitten by an insect. Maybe this is an allergic reaction. So he went to the GP. They prescribed him. They were like kind of agreed with that. And they prescribed him medication for it. He started taking the medication, and within 24 hours, he was getting worse, like rapidly worse, not better. And it was a Sunday morning. He'd had a very rough night's sleep, coughing a lot and not comfortable. He came downstairs in the morning and he couldn't really walk. He couldn't really coordinate his movements or anything. And I was like, I think we need to go to the hospital. This looks very serious. And my eldest daughter was like, yes, Mum, for the last few days, it's been getting really worse. I'm really worried. I said, okay, you know what? Go upstairs, pack him an overnight bag because he'll probably be admitted. I think he's having an allergic reaction to either the sting or the medication for the sting. Let's get him to A&E. So we went in a taxi. Our neighbour's a taxi driver, so she took us in. So we went in a taxi and he was like, he couldn't even sit up. I was like propping him up in the taxi. And I arrived and I said straight away, okay, I think we've got an allergic reaction going on here. My husband needs to be admitted straight away. They whisked him straight through. And let me tell you, that is always a bad sign. Yeah. You would rather be sitting in the waiting room because you're generally okay if you're sitting in the waiting room. But he was whisked straight through. I obviously do the paperwork and then I'm sitting in the waiting room. Within it was quick. It was like half hour, 40 minutes. Doctor came through, called my name, took me to the side and said, we know what's wrong. He has end-stage kidney failure.
Oh, my God.
And I went. And it was like in a movie where, vroom, you feel like you're, the floor's gone away and you're dropping down. And I almost fainted. He had to sort of pick me up a bit. And I was like, okay. And then he went, would you like to see him? And I said, absolutely. And he said, we don't usually bring, especially in COVID, we don't usually bring family members into this room where all the very serious patients are. And I was like, God, okay, again, a bad sign. So in I went, and he was hooked up to everything, like tubes in here, wires going in, everything. And he was still completely out of it. And then that just began in the whole journey of like learning about kidney failure, what it is, what we need to do, how we're going to tackle it, how we're going to live with it. And yeah, getting very used to hospitals, basically.
I mean, you sort of mentioned that the sort of initial reaction for you was like this, like the ground opened up. How did you deal with your sort of emotions during this time?
I mean, they were up and down, like very severe. I mean, I think that I now know, looking back, I spent sort of 2 years in a state of like heightened stress. And it's not the first major trauma I've had in my life. So I think that kind of helped in a way, because I sort of said to myself, you've been through these awful traumas and you've got through them. You should be able to get through this as well. And there were some practical things I did. Like I had a fantastic personal trainer who I've known for like 10 years. He used to teach my kids swimming, and he's wonderful. And I know from having bouts of depression in the past that exercise is very key for me to sort of keep on top of things. And so I had him once a week, and then on the lead up to the big surgery, twice a week, because that was to try and have the best possible recovery, quickest possible recovery from the surgery. And then really, some days I was fine and coping. Other days I was an absolute mess and snapping at people and just drinking too much gin, very honestly.
No one's blaming you here.
And just trying to keep it all together. I've got 85, 86-year-old, with his own health problems living with me, father-in-law. I've got, my 2 kids. My youngest kid was really struggling at school as well at the time. And my husband spent more time in hospital and in the dialysis clinics for those 2 years than at home. It was hard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what you would have gone through during that period. Like, it just sounds too much. And how old were your kids at the time, and how did you break the news to them?
So not great at going back at time in maths. Where are we now? So they're 17 and 10 now. So they were 6 and, see, I really can't do them. I'm 14.
Wow, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could they understand?
So I remember coming home that night. So by the time I got home, so obviously I was sending the messages and it was a Sunday, so my helper wasn't there. So the kids were home, and obviously at that time I would leave my eldest at home on her own, but I'd never left her with my youngest at that time. But obviously the priority was to get my husband to hospital. I couldn't wait for anyone to come in and be a relief. And my helper did come home, so she came home within an hour. And I was at the hospital, getting him settled, getting him in the room, talking to doctors until very late, like 10, 11 p.m. And by the time I came home, the house was completely quiet. Everyone had gone to bed, and I just sat in the living room, like in the dark. And I was like, oh, you're going to have to tell everyone tomorrow. You're going to have to like dig. You're just going to have to cope with this because you're the only one that can.
Yeah.
It's up to you now.
I can't imagine having to be the pillar of strength in front of your girls when you just found out the news yourself, right? I mean, it's like there wasn't too much time in between.
Well, one thing we decided really early on, and as a parent, you procrastinate and you research and you make your decision on what you're going to do with your children, and and then you stick with it and you hope you've made the right decision. I felt very strongly that they should be made aware of everything, and maybe the language changes slightly for the different age group. But I really strongly felt from the beginning that they know something serious is happening, and they shouldn't be lied to about it. We shouldn't withhold any information from them. They need to know what is going on, because who knows what crisis they might face in their lives. So it's kind of learning, and it's the reality of what we're going through. And I wanted them to somehow feel that we're in it together. They're a part of it, and it's important that they felt that they were informed about everything.
Hey, Amanda, do you know of a really easy way to give your kids some good gut bacteria?
I do indeed. I'm giving my family a Keezy Wellness Elderberry Boost. They come in these little sachets. You just rip them open, pour it right in your mouth.
That sounds like fun. And I bet I could add that to their smoothies and some Greek yogurt too.
And what I love about a Keezy is that you can take it any time of day, and there's a product for all ages, even my 12-week-old little guy.
Akisi believe that food is medicine, so you know the products are clean and have no gums and fillers. They also take a science-forward approach and include pre, post, probiotics as well as polyphenols.
And the best thing is you can get 15% off full-price items with free delivery when you use code 40s at checkout for any purchases in Singapore from their website, akizywellness.com.
And don't forget to check out their new Akisi Berry and Akisi Tropical flavours too. Now back to the chat.
Yeah.
What options did the doctors then give you as to how to sort of move forward with your husband's condition?
So the whole kidney thing works very differently in different countries. Initially, the treatment is at his stage. So there's 5 stages, 1 to 5 for kidney failure. 1 through 3 can be controlled with medication. It's always progressive, but 1 through 3, medication. 3.5, you start maybe having a bit of dialysis. 4 and 5, by the time you hit stage 5, it's full-blown dialysis, right? I think that if we had waited 24, 48 hours more, he would have been dead, because when he went in, his lungs were 80% water, 80% fluid, because the kidney gets rid of the fluid in the body, and his blood was absolutely toxic, because again, that's the other job of the kidney. So he had to have dialysis straight away, but it's actually administering that is quite complex. Initially, it goes straight into the kidney, but you have to be in hospital for that. So then they fit catheters. So the initial catheters go straight into your heart, because the dialysis machine is very powerful. So you have to have a major artery and vein to cope with it. And so that happened first, but then there's risk of infection. So we went through this period of like 6 months where he was having outpatient dialysis, but then the catheter would get infected, and then he'd have to go into hospital, have another surgery, take that one out, put a new one in, and then meanwhile, they create the permanent location for dialysis is actually on your forearm, the inside of your forearm, and they create what they call an AV fistula. So they pull down the major artery and vein, but it takes about 3 months to grow, they say, to be able to cope with the dialysis machine. So in that time, you have to cope with the more high risk of infection situation, and that can be very complex. And very difficult. So then you're on dialysis. Some people stay on dialysis, but he is very young. Like, he just turned 50. That for stage 5 is very young.
Yeah.
And to be on dialysis, very young. So usually, like when I would go and see him in the dialysis clinic, he's by far the youngest in the room, usually. Because it's very taxing on the body. It ruins your heart. It ruins your lungs. Like, it's such a heavy pumping machine. So then, I would say for the first few months, we were just in a daze. It was just survival mode. And then there was one pivotal day where, so we're all still kind of in lockdown, because I remember it wasn't full lockdown, but we were all still in our homes. I think it's when the regulations were you could only meet with 4 or 5 people outside your home or something.
Yeah, that number changed so rapidly here, right?
Exactly. Because I remember this evening, actually, where, so he was in the hospital down the road from me, from where we live, with another infection. Oh, it's quite good to live walking distance from a hospital, by the way, if you are going through a big medical crisis. So he was in the hospital down the road, and we had an online quiz night booked with a big group of friends, and that's how we sort of socialised during the COVID. And I went down there with like a special dinner and some nice drinks to do the quiz together. So we were together in the hospital doing the quiz together, and then I went to my friend's house afterwards. And I remember her I like burst into tears as soon as I arrived. I was like, I don't know what we are going to do. And she said to me, Claire, you and Whiskey, that's his nickname, you are not being your normal selves. You need to, she was like hard reality talk. She was like, you can cope with this. You will cope with this. There is a solution, which is transplant. And I was like, I know, but, you know, he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to go down that route because it's taking someone's organ. And she said she actually had a friend who had just had that surgery in Australia, and she talked me through it a bit. And I said, you know what, you're right. We're not operating how we normally operate. We're problem solvers as people. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have a good cry tonight, wake up in the morning, start the plan.
Wow.
And so from what I understand, you need to be a match in order to have a transplant. Is that correct? So that the body doesn't reject?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what happened then is we said to his kidney specialist, his nephrologist that he was under at the time, we would like to look at the options of a transplant. And that nephrologist said, I don't deal with transplants. And I was like, oh, okay, who does? So then we transferred to another doctor, and he said, okay, transplants are only done in one place in Singapore. So it's National University Hospital. It's the Newcott Centre. They deal with kidney and liver transplants. So the first thing you need to do is go and have an appointment with them. So initially we were looking for a cadaverous transplant.
Sorry, what's a cadaverous?
Cadaverous meaning a cadaver, like a dead body.
Oh,
so it's somebody
okay.
who unfortunately has met with a bad accident or and has died, but they themselves have opted for organ donation, or their family has decided they're happy for that to happen. You basically go on a waiting list, and you're on call. And when those organs become available through the sad circumstances, but you go in and you have your transplant. The waiting list in Singapore is by far the largest in the world. It is 10 years.
Oh my God, wow.
10 years. To put that into perspective, the quickest in the world is Spain, which is 8 months.
Wow.
Because it's an opt-out donor system. If I think I remember that correctly, but you can fact check that. So it's very long. And so immediately we were like, that's not an option, because actually by then he might not be a very good candidate for it, because he wouldn't be in great shape to do the surgery. So then it was the discussion about, some like a live donor. And actually 3 of our friends, including the friend who was giving me the hard talk that evening, 3 of our friends said, we've all been talking about this. We are ready. We're ready to volunteer. So then we have another, so it's a different team that deal with live transplants at NUH. So then we have another appointment with them. And they say, well, who is around who can volunteer to be tested? Usually it's a parent or a sibling. And we were like, well, that's not an option for us. We have some friends. And I said, we've never had a friend donate to a friend. I'm not sure that would pass ethics committee. Okay. Wow. Well, I'm wanting to do it as well. And they were like, okay, we'll start with you. In fact, we went into the meeting saying, right, I've got 8 names. Let's coordinate a date. Let's get everyone in the room, because I'm treating it like a business situation. I'm like, let's make this happen, and as quick as possible. And they were like, that is not how it works. We go candidate, like volunteer by volunteer, and it's very convoluted and it's very in depth and it's case by case basis. So therein started, the testing phase. Yeah.
And can you sort of walk us through what that entailed?
So what happened was I'm assigned, so the donor is assigned their own specialist, doctor, within that unit. And then the recipient is assigned their own as well. And the doctors, even though they're part of the same unit in the hospital, they work separately to work out the best case scenario for their patient. Okay. And so obviously initial questions, what is your state of health? So the usual tests, a round of blood tests, obviously urine tests, just checking, not a mammogram, but a bit of poking around up here and, bit of, investigative work. And then they look at those results and then you go to the next stage. So it's like, okay, we do the top line stuff first. Then we look at the results and then we go a bit deeper and then we look at those results and then we say, what needs to be done now? So it goes in like stages like that. So
how long is that whole process?
So I started testing in July 2021 and then the operation was 16th of March 2022.
Wow.
It feels like it was longer, but we really pushed them.
That sounds quite long already. Mm-hmm. That's almost a year.
Oh, we really pushed them.
Just shy.
We really did. And I had every the only thing I didn't have is an MRI. I had everything else done you could possibly imagine. And they did, and it did throw up some things. Little kidney stone in one of the kidneys, thyroid problem that I never knew I had, that I've probably had for many years. Little things that you can cope with, though, luckily. And the matching is really interesting because their initial reaction was a bit like, well, usually female to male, the organ's not usually big enough. You are totally different ethnicity. Like I'm, Caucasian, kind of mix of Irish and, other Caucasian European. He's Punjabi. Indian, so they were like, well, I feel like almost they were humouring me in the beginning. I was like, right, let's get this done. I'm going to do it. And they were like, well, we'll just have to see if the match. And they didn't tell us until after the surgery that we are the closest match possible.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's strange.
That's like it was meant to be, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's strange.
After each round of tests, right? I feel like it's a hurdle that you had to clear, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, blood work is clear. Now next, urine.
Yes.
Okay, now next, thyroid. Was it becoming increasingly clear to you, though, that you would be the donor? I mean, every time you pass one of those hurdles where you're like, this is happening.
Yes and no, because it's the tests always throw up something. So then you have another discussion and then all along the way, they are really watching you, right? They are assessing you. They're assessing your body. I'm very aware. They were assessing my mental state, my body language, are you changing your mind? And actually, when they didn't actually do a scan, the CT scan was the one that actually shows the state of your organs and that you have two. Because I kept saying, can we just do that first? Because I might have been born with one and not know, because that does happen. And they're like, no, we don't do that till much later on. And I had a funny discussion. I had a moment of realisation and I said to my doctor in one meeting, do you not do the more serious and more painful tests until later on because people kind of drop out? And he said, yeah, of course. It gets more and more serious and they're kind of testing how serious you are and are you actually okay to do this and are you going to do it or not? Yeah. But all along the way, I mean, it really was like I'm going to seal the deal. This is going to happen.
So for you, you were obviously very adamant. You knew that you wanted to go through with what was happening. When you first mentioned to your husband that, you could be a potential donor, what was his mindset? What were his thoughts behind that? No, straight away.
Yeah.
I had to persuade him. It was no straight away. And I think that at the beginning, it's not the first major health crisis he's had. He almost died when he was in his 20s. He was in a coma for 6 months with meningitis. And then he developed septicemia and he had amputations and things. So he went through that journey in his 20s. And he said, I've done it before. I can do it again. I can cope with this. And I just said, I don't want that for my life, your life, our kids' lives. Mm-hmm. And I really persuaded him because, of course, he doesn't want me or anyone else in his family to be hurt or come to harm. But I kept saying to him and the doctors, I'm like, okay, I've had 2 children. One, that route. One, the alternative route. It can't be that bad.
I've been down both streets.
I said that to the surgeon on our first meeting. He was explaining the surgery and, pain care. And I said, okay, just tell me one thing. On a scale of 1 to C-section, what are we talking here?
Yeah. I'm interested. What did he give you? What did he give you?
He said, He did give me a number, actually. He said, "Oh, okay, fine. You've done okay. Yeah, you'll be fine." But the pain care after is different because your epidural gives you a nice slow afterburn, easing off. Whereas the medication that they give in this surgery is a hard stop after surgery. So you're on a morphine drip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What would you say was the hardest or the scariest part of the whole journey for you?
The scariest part was one time when he got MRSA infection in one of his catheters.
Oh my God.
So quite in the beginning. I would say that was sort of 6 months into it. And he was in the hospital, and they all know, like Parkway East Hospital, love them. Everyone knows me, all the receptionists.
Shout out to Parkway.
Exactly. Walking distance from my house, walk down, check on my husband, he was in there so often. The last infection he got in the second catheter was MRSA, and that is scary. That is very, very difficult to get rid of. The specialist doctor kept saying it's very sticky. If it gets into the bones, we're in real trouble. We don't think it's in the bones yet. And I thought, you know what it's like in life? You're focusing on one thing and then something else comes around and knocks it all out. And that's the thing that really, makes it all end. And I went in one evening, and it was a Sunday. So Sunday's a very slow day in hospitals around the world. Obviously the staff are still there, but the major staff aren't there. And so I went in, and he had been in for about a week, and I took one look at him and I thought, he does not look like he's improving. I'm really, really worried now. And I went to the nurse's station and I just broke down. And I was like, are we okay? Is this, where are we on the treatment plan? They were amazing. They took me, got me tissues, got me water, took me into their office, called the major specialist on a Sunday evening. He's pulled away from the dinner table, has the conversation with me. And, they were really amazing. But that was really the scariest moment.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
No.
And obviously this all sort of happened during COVID, so things were harder to get through.
Yeah.
How did you find the support you needed during this time?
One thing I would say is that dealing with the information is actually quite a huge burden, because I'm doing work. I carried on with the businesses, right? So I'm doing all the business and 2 kids, and then father-in-law, and then the information. So every time I go to the hospital, I'm given all the information, because the children were never, ever allowed to go to the hospital.
Right.
Even when so a lot of the time he was in intensive care, but even when he wasn't and he was on a normal ward, throughout the entire time, because of COVID rules, they were never allowed in. It was only ever me that was allowed to visit. And so I would get all this information, and then I would need to go home, tell the family, but also friends, and they're trying to support. But actually one thing I learned is find a person who'll be like your information, I don't know, I've lost the words.
Like
but
liaison.
Exactly, who will keep everyone informed. Because once you've done all that and all the paperwork,
you just
repeating. The repetition is exhausting. So with the family, I would be including the help, I'd be like, right, everyone, I need to do these little committee meetings. Everyone sit down in the living room. I'm going to give you all the information all in one go.
Yeah, that's a really great tip, though.
Yeah.
I even feel that way with happy news, right? Like when you have a baby and everybody's bombarding you, tell me the story, tell me about it. And it's like, you just want to tell it once.
Exactly.
With painful news, amplify that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about that kind of those few days lead up time when you noticed your husband having the swollen face and the hard lip. And are there signs to the earlier stages of kidney problems?
There are so many signs.
Okay.
And they are so obvious.
Okay, tell us, girl.
This is really a lesson in please take care of yourselves.
Okay.
If there is something wrong with you, don't assume it's what
Bee sting.
Yeah, or don't assume it's your lifestyle choices, or you're not exercising, or you're not drinking too much beer. For years we look back and we're like, oh my God, all the signs were there. Swollen ankles is the number one thing.
Okay.
If you got puffy, swollen ankles, go and get your kidney tested immediately. His sinuses, so fluid on the lungs, we thought he was having sinuses. So he went to an ENT. He was actually scheduled to have nose surgery in the January. He went into hospital in December 2020. He was actually going to have a surgery on his nose in the January because that was what they thought it was. It wasn't at all. Nothing wrong with his sinuses. It was just his lungs were filling with fluid. There are so many signs, and actually it is a bit scary that we didn't, well, it was wrong of us, really, to not go to doctors and not seek. And when you go to a doctor, go for a second opinion. If those symptoms don't step aside, right? If they still are there, and don't assume it's like the food fad things. I mean, you're both nutritionists, and it's like everyone thinks they've got allergies from this, that, and the other, and maybe they do. But actually, please have a basic blood test done, have your urine tested, like just make sure all those organs are functioning. Yeah,
something we say here, and we said it in season 1, we'll say it again here, is know your numbers. Have baselines for every important marker in your body at, at least annually, if not every 6 months, if you've had pre-existing problems before.
100%. And that's it. And it's, I think it's a generational change as well between, I hope I'm not ill, I hope I'm not ill in the back of my, I hope I'm not ill, I hope I'm not ill. Oh, I really feel at breaking point now. I'm going to go to the doctor or end up in A&E. It's turning that into actually, well, it's a more conversational situation with your doctors. And yes, it takes time and, consistency and a bit of money. But, you actually do need to do that. And you're right, the stats, like I had no idea before I did all of this, the amount of blood tests you have to do, like they really need to track it and know it. And it's tracking stats.
Yeah. And again, we're here on the Forties Formula, right? So meaning we're talking about healthy aging. You might not need it in your 20s. I get that. But here in your 40s and 50s, you sure do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So on your Instagram, there was a picture of a butterfly while you were on staycation. What was the significance of that?
Oh, okay. So shortly before the surgery, and actually it's really tricky because the last thing you do after all the testing and then they have internal meetings and the doctors have to ratify their decisions. It has to be checked and double checked. And all the while I'm thinking, okay, people have plastic surgery all the time without any of this. But anyway, let's do all these meetings. So do all of that. And then the surgery date is kind of penciled in so the teams can organise. It's a massive, massive surgical team and recovery team. So it's penciled in for the 16th of March, 2022, but the ethics committee are the last sign off and they don't meet until a week before. And I have to say that is so stressful. And I understand why they do it very close to the date because people do change their minds, things change. But that for me was I was so worried that I wouldn't pass the ethics committee. I don't know why, but you can't, your doctor can't coach you, can't help you. It's like giving evidence in the court of law. You really have to go in there and you don't know what they're going to ask you and you don't know who's going to be on the committee and everything. And I understand why, but that for me was very stressful. But so back to the butterfly, we love Capella Hotel. That's where we normally go for our staycations. And we were like, okay, I feel like we're about to do this major surgery, hopefully, if we get passed by ethics committee. Let's just pamper ourselves a little bit before. Let's have a bit of time, just you and me. So we went to stay with Capella for a couple of nights. And we were lounging by the pool. And a butterfly came by and landed on my husband's body, sort of like the lower stomach area, and just stayed there for a while. And I was like, oh, and took a picture of it. And it turns out that is the spot where the kidney is. My kidney is there now.
It's incredible.
That is weird, right?
Getting goosebumps.
It's like it's beautifully weird, though, isn't it? It's beautifully weird.
And I'm not spiritual. After all that, I still don't believe it.
Yeah. You're like, maybe that butterfly just,
yeah, it was confused.
Stopping by.
No, but that's where it is. And I didn't know, because obviously your kidneys are on your back.
Yeah.
But they don't remove the diseased kidneys. They just reroute the lines and they put the new one in the front.
I did not know that.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I did not know that either.
I thought it was a bait and switch situation.
That's right.
No, because it's that, as always with surgery, the least trauma possible is the best route to success, basically. So it goes in the front and we call it Betty. And she has a birthday on the 16th of March every year.
Little Bet.
And he now says that, he's part white, part female.
After all these years.
So that's funny, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. Like we said before, we just can't believe what you would have gone through, you and your family. And before we sort of finish up for today, if you could go back, is there anything you would say to yourself in the situation on how you may have done things differently or what you could look out for?
I mean, obviously, we wish he had gone to the doctors. So it's interesting. He was going to doctors, but they were looking at other things. And I don't know. Obviously, you start at the GP, and if you're still having the same symptoms and your GP is prescribing you things, but it's not really helping, please go to a different one. Just get another opinion. And I feel like, I don't know why we feel like that's rude or something on the first doctor. I don't know what it is.
We're British.
So British.
Yeah.
Don't bother the NHS.
I was going to say, this. Yeah, for Americans, this is not a thing. We'll be like, nah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Show me somebody better.
Don't burden the NHS. Don't go. This is absolutely necessary. But really, I obviously, I wish it still would have happened, but we could have managed it a bit better and a bit more in the beginning. I don't know. I actually am quite proud of myself for getting through that. I think that and the family as well. My children, my husband, and everyone. I think, I think I don't know. I think we all did a fairly good job.
Amazing. Yeah. And just to check, how's your husband now?
Yeah, all good.
Amazing.
Yeah, all
wow.
good. Yeah, fine.
Fine. I mean, what is the long-term aftermath?
So the organ should last between 15 and 20 years.
Wow.
So obviously we know already he'll need another one at a certain point in time. But there are medical tests going on at the moment. They're trying to find out a way of having a mechanical kidney or using organs from other animals. I think there was something in America recently. I saw an article about a pig organ transplant.
I did see that.
But actually, the other thing I would say, it's weird because in my life, I've always been a huge advocate for organ donorship, and I've always had my donor card, from when I turned 18 in the UK. I have my donor card, and I really feel that it should be an opt-out system, not opt-in. And everyone's walking around with a spare kidney, pretty much.
Right? This bounty, right? If you think about a family in your situation and those of us who would do, like you said, like it should be an opt-out. Like, I feel like, your general humanity opt in, right?
Yes. And it's like this surgery has been done, tried and tested and been done. Obviously it's not 100% safe, but it is a well-trodden path, right? And the specialist teams around the world, because obviously I investigated like plan A, B, C, D, right? So plan A was me here. Plan B was, maybe India, completely privately. I give my organ out and then we get another random one if the matches work better that way. Move to Spain, become a new citizen again, move to Spain.
Ole.
Or America, of course. There's loads of kidney transplants done in America. So I feel like it's more about please do if you're okay. If someone in your family is going through this, obviously it's a big trauma, and insurance is a bit more complicated for me now, but so what? I mean, that's life, right? So 15 to 20 years, he should be good. And then we'll find another one from somewhere, maybe a mechanical one, who knows?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
And how are you?
Fine. I mean, fine. So they check on me every year at Newcott. So I actually, it's really brilliant because if I have any health problems, I just WhatsApp my coordinator still now.
Wow.
Anything. And they get me to the best specialist doctors. NUH are amazing, and that team at Newcott are so wonderful, and not just the doctors and the nurses, but like all the support team, like the people on the reception, and they all know all those patients, and they're long-term patients for that unit, and how they keep doing that work day in, day out, and the camaraderie and everything. It's really wonderful to watch. Yeah.
All right, so shout out to Parkway East, shout out to NUH. You are getting our praises.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Claire. It's been really wonderful hearing your story. an incredibly scary but inspiring story. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, you know how much we love coffee. And if you want to show us some love, you know you can get us one.
Just visit buymeacoffee.com/the40s formula. Cheers. We recently had a review from Abhidip NC on episode 8 with Priyanka Ray. This episode is a must for all, gender agnostic. Priyanka takes us through a journey and quite frankly teaches us to pause, reflect, and resume.
Thank you, Abhidip NC, for listening to the episode. It's so great that we have male and female listeners that can relish in what is being said by our speakers and guests.
Before we go, please remember to hit subscribe and take a moment to support the 40s Formula by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform.
Your reviews will help us to reach more people and allow us to continue to bring valuable content. It should only take a moment, and it's a free way for you to support the show.
You can also stay updated with the 40s Formula by following us on Instagram at the 40s Formula, all one word. We share behind-the-scenes insights, episode updates, and much more, so please be sure to hit that follow button.
We appreciate your time and support. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll be back next week for more empowering conversations with inspiring guests.
Bye.
Bye.
The Sikh temple there?
Yeah.
I
I
did the full Amritsar at Christmas.
Did you?
I went to the Bind, I stayed with the family,
Wow.
and I am a city girl. I am not a countryside girl.
To be fair, it's a trip I
like,
want to do with the boys. Like at one point, I said to my husband, when would be the right time to go to India with the boys? I think it's going to be a massive culture shock for them.
There's no right time.
So what I did was the last trip I had, it was with my mother-in-law,
Yeah.
but not with my husband. And like I'll have butter with the vegetables and
Yes.
things. And they were doing everything fresh for me, and I was like, "This is amazing!"
That is
and
incredible.
we went in Feb, and it was cold,
Yeah.
and so cold I didn't actually want to wash my hair there, so I kept going to the salon for a blowout, and I was
Yeah,
like,
nice.
"It's so
quite-
cheap."
yeah.
It's like the equivalent, I think it was to $10 to go
Yes.
get my hair washed and then blowed
Yeah,
out, and I was like, "Oh, I love this lifestyle."
Nice.
And then we're back in Singapore, and I'm washing my own hair now.
Yeah. I can count on one hand the amount of blowouts I've had in 10 years.
Yeah, I'm
Actually,
sure I
it's
could
my
as well.
favourite thing to get my hair done. I would choose that over a massage usually. I
really?
love getting my hair done. I find it like when people,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess
I'm
the head
trying to think,
massage
like,
is quite
would I?
nice, yeah.
Yeah.